start recording, and then we can start with, since this is our general meeting, we will go through and we'll provide bioregional updates. So right now we have people from Toronto, Cleveland, Rochester, and then I'm from Buffalo. And we'll do another round where we let everybody share more specific project or land-based updates, anything that they'd like to share with the group, kind of making sure that we're all staying on the same page, and also presenting new initiatives. Every other week we're meeting, and we're going to be helping to supporting each other as we identify opportunities for mapping. So that's what our first meeting was last week, and I think if we're still interested in continuing to meet with this regular meeting, this can be the one where we share more general updates so that we can focus solely on the designing the maps on the off weeks. So yeah, I'd be really interested to hear maybe if Cleveland, Kim, I know that you gave a really nice update about the meeting up with Kelly and everything, but if there's anything else, and Victoria, did you say you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the people who are new, this is the first time, that like Ian, that there is a Toronto or Toronto bioregional call on at a separate time. I don't know, but you know, Brian and Susan?
Yeah, Susan's my sister. And
oh, how
I
wonderful.
talked to Ryan for an hour on the phone after a call 2 days ago.
Okay.
I've been on, like all of us, we're doing a lot of Zooming.
Yeah.
But tell me the difference between what this group is, somebody, or maybe Anna, or and the Toronto Bioregion focus group. Is this bigger than Toronto Bio? It obviously is.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got two levels going on here. This is a synthesis level across bioregions, or what are we calling it?
Yeah, essentially it's the next level up. So this is representatives from each of the bioregions. Anybody from Toronto is welcome to join. And you may or may not be engaged with, it sounds like you're talking about a different Susan though. Susan Bozak is the Susan that works with Brian Puppa at the Legacy Project, and you're related to Susan Graham. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so whether you are involved with Brian Puppa and Susan Bozak's work or not, you're welcome to come here. And this is just essentially a way for us to make visible to each other what's going on in each other's bioregions. We can share strategies. We're able to collaborate this way.
Okay, I get it. Well, that's why I'm here. I try to get the lingo down and see where I can put the shovel in the ground. The Great Lakes Basin is the next level up from the bioregions that we happen to live in, whether it be Rochester, Buffalo, Toronto. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you came to us by way of the design school, I take it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think so just so you know, on our off, not everybody here is part of the design school. This is very much open. So if you know somebody else who's interested in joining, they do not have to be a member of the design school. They're more than welcome to come and share their experiences with us. And same thing with our mapping project. So on the off weeks, we meet at the same time where we are starting to decide what types of maps we might want to use and the scope of the maps, if they're land-based, they're indigenous tribe-based, if they're cognitive social mapping, we're still kind of feeling into that. Probably more so just collecting data for now, but that's also open to anybody. You don't have to be in the design school to join.
How is this not the design school?
So this started in Earth Regenerators. And I was, Penny and Benji and Joe asked to share this event because there's several of us who are part of the design school. I'm part of the design school. as well. And so she asked that we share this link on the design school to invite them in, and they might be helping with our mapping project by sharing some resources with us.
Okay.
So here,
Yeah.
so this is Peter. When these points are clarified, I'm kind of in a position where I'd like to add to the Cleveland report. I may not be able to be with you much longer, so
Oh, great. Yeah.
apologize for the forbearance of my driving here.
Yeah, absolutely. Take it away, Peter.
You're sure you've addressed other people's, the new folks? Okay, great. So
I cannot see the
let me
directions.
just say, I'm going to stop driving here so we're safe. But the first thing I'll say is Dave Nash is not with us. Kim, Dave, and I are meeting regularly around the Cleveland bioregion with Jillian as well, and some other folks from time to time. Tomorrow, we'll be having a meeting of our health group, which is led by Bud Isaacson, who's one of the deans of our medical school. And that is, we're trying to figure out how to make a regional health conference, a bioregional conference. Those who've been on the call before know that that's one of our intentions. And that, so any inspiring words about the importance of ecosystem health and health, I will take to that conversation tomorrow. The other thing is that Dave and I were with the Conscious Capitalism group, so we are working actively with the business community, including the Weatherhead School of Management, that now has a new director, Kim. I don't know if you know, the Fowler Center for Business and Asia for World Benefit. And finally, I don't know him. He's a graduate of the, I'll send you a link. I really don't know who he is. I can't remember his name. I think it was Josh something, but that may be making a mistake. But take a look. There was an announcement. I'll send you something. So that's an exciting change in leadership that may lead to some inroads in the business school. And finally, Bud, the dean that I mentioned, and I know the head of the Land Conservancy, which is a very vital organization in our town and does a lot of thinking about bioregions and land. So Bud is giving a talk for them. And finally, the Greater Cleveland, sorry, I'm going to say finally 2 more times. Finally, the Greater Cleveland Tree Coalition is beginning their strategic planning, and I'll be participating next week. And we really want to keep a focus on trees in Cleveland as we try to increase our canopy. And finally, NOACA, which is, I can never remember the abbreviation. It's basically,
Oh, we lost you.
Northern Ohio Area Coordinating Agency.
talking regionally. So anyway, that was just a few things that some of you know that we're working on already, but I hope that's of some interest to the new folks and a little bit of an update. Thank you.
Peter, we lost you on what you were reporting on NOACA.
Sorry, NOACA. I've got a kit, Kim, with to help the NOACA street planning process, and I'll be using that.
He's going in and out. We don't get
Yeah,
him.
we're still losing you, Peter.
Okay, I apologize. So let me just say, I'll say more about NOACA to our local group and report that next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
One solution.
Yeah.
And I have a question because Jonathan and I are working on a tree canopy initiative. So who should we talk with? Kimberly or Peter or what? Or how could we communicate?
So if you can hear me, probably me, because I'm part of the Cleveland Tree Coalition, which is the one that's the lead organization. But Kimberly may have some other things that I know Kimberly is very interested in, the trees they're taking down on our own campus, for example.
Okay.
You know what? Can I process comment if I may?
Yeah, go ahead.
And does everybody know that you can edit the name in the participants list to say whatever you want? And it's I've taken to putting my city or my region in my name title there. And so I'm, as newcomers come on our group, we won't know where we're from, but if it's in our name list, we can scan, oh, Kim's from Cleveland or Peter's from Rochester, note the other way around, check. That's just a process suggestion for us to kind of build some glue on the call.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's a great idea. So everyone,
What are you
I
doing?
see. So if you click on the upper right-hand corner of your screen, the three little dots, you can edit your name and rename yourself to include your city. Yeah, so and I think once you're on for a few times, I think you'll also be able to remember
Well, it looks like we'll
like
come together.
Kimberly and Peter and Doreen, who is on her phone. I'm not sure who iPhone 6 is though.
So
There.
let's go.
But yeah, Cleveland, Peter and Kim and Doreen are all from Cleveland.
Well, great, thanks. See, we can try it out and see if it works. If we're lucky, we're going to have new people like me showing up, regularly. And this the issue of scaling is really one of our main predicaments.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great recommendation. Thank you. So Kim and Doreen, would either of you like to continue on with any updates from Cleveland?
Mm-hmm.
I can share a little bit. For my part, is mainly been just meeting a lot of people, who are doing some really nice things around here, like the ones I mentioned that I'll drop into the chat. Someone else I haven't yet mentioned, her name's Jan, and she's on the board of Rid All Green Partnership, which is on inner city farming here. And she is doing a walk around the lakes, the Underground Railroad, and developed a map for that, where it's kind of like location by location. You press the button and something comes up about that. And I thought, and she's really interested in what we're doing. And I don't know if it's going up beyond Lake Erie, but that's definitely related. So, just coming in and out of meeting people like this. I'm in a friend, like in a Centered Heart meditation group. There's it's headed by a woman, a nurse, a practitioner, during like that, who is now going into holistic nursing. And she had started an integrative nursing program at the Cleveland Clinic. She has visited some of the more spiritual sites, the mounds, like they're called in Ohio, where Native Americans are buried or gathered, and gave me the name of a person she spends time with there, a woman named Beatrice Manasseh Quee Jackson. She is also someone who walks around the lake, and she is in Cedarville, Michigan, so going up that way into the bioregion. At work, I work at Case Western Reserve University in the physics department. We have scientists involved in climate, whether, it's what they're teaching. And the group that Peter mentioned, like one of our main scientists has gone to provide testimony, and because they're trying to take the word climate out of the regional plan. And then the state of Ohio, there's other legislation to remove climate change from a higher education bill that would require, both sides of climate change to be taught. In Ohio, there's all of this stuff. So I've got some beautiful testimony that he provided that I will share with the group here, and the tool could be helpful anywhere. And then also a bridge to like Peter and Dave are very involved in the business community. I am a little bit with people involved in sustainability, and then with my daughter Jillian and Peter and Dave. So there are a lot of different bridges coming together, and I'm really excited about meeting the people doing the farm, the people that I don't know. I didn't know who they were, but I know there are so many here already doing this for that map that John mentioned, and people are starting to gather and do things together. That's my only update. Doreen, do you want to add anything? Doreen, we should meet sometime.
I know, we ought to meet sometime.
Yeah. So the other update I have is Peter is also on the Climate Consortium Collaborative with me. And he spoke about plans for making a regional conference. And there's a lot of good work being done in nursing school and medical school regarding projects that students are undertaking to connect patients with the vocabulary of climate change. And like, I think they're doing a survey on how patients actually experience certain sequelae or aspects of climate change and how to mitigate, how to adapt. So, and then it's green, our green team at Metro Health is focusing on, we're moving to a new hospital, so focusing on minimizing what's being discarded to landfill and repurposing things. And then in my community, Fairview Park, we have a group of pretty smart women who are looking to change ordinances to try to help with the whole climate change business, like changing ordinances so that you can grow your grass longer than 3 inches or whatever, ordinances. We're looking at the ordinances, be it maximum number of parking spaces needed for a business or items such as that. So that's exciting. It's I don't have much to report on the actual watershed update. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, thank you, Doreen. That's really great. So Charlie, I see your hand up. I just want to invite the person on iPhone 6 to introduce herself and just tell us who you are, where you're from, and maybe a little check in how you're doing today.
That's my sister.
Oh, okay.
And she's on a cell phone, so it's harder.
Yeah. Hi, Susan. If you're able to unmute.
Yeah, she froze.
Oh.
Not good. Okay, I guess we're gonna pass it.
We can come back to you. But nice to meet you, Susan. Hi. Yeah, Charlie, did you want to go next?
Suggest a term which, in my opinion, is a better description of what's happening with the climate, and that is climate destabilization. I've heard a lot of talks about all the climate changes all the time. What's the big deal about climate destabilization? I don't think that they can really argue with that term. So just something to consider.
Yeah, instead of climate change. Okay, thank you. So Rochester, would you guys like to go next?
Jonathan, are you there?
I'm here, but I don't know that I have a lot to report. Would you like to say some things about our recent conversations? The whole thing was breaking up for me, so I turned my video off.
Sure.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
the thing that I'm really interested in are the main climate organization in Rochester called the Climate Solutions Accelerator. And they keep expanding there now, a NYSERDA hub. So they're getting a lot of money, a lot of resources. And they put on a conference on Friday and Saturday for Earth Day. And they did a really, really great job. They had a couple hundred people each day. The first day was for organizations, and the second was for the general public. And it really is a breakthrough because for this organization, which previously really was only interested in carbon goals, carbon mitigation. And, it was, so they did a book club around Kate Raworth's donut economy, and it transformed them. The executive director, is like, oh my goodness, it's this whole thing, not just this thing. Whatever. It is a breath of fresh air, John. You should be really happy about that. So that was terrific. And they're also doing this course called Color Your Organization Green. So it is an outreach to organizations of any kind to send somebody or a group of people to work on their own climate plan. And it's been very successful. They had some really good top organizations join them and doing this. And so I'm very, vicariously thrilled for them. And it'll be great for the whole area to have biodiversity represented in the major climate organization. They had a big thing on farms, so it's like an overnight transformation, and it's very, very much appreciated. It's particularly important for us because we had run-ins with the executive director, because we're doing something in this decarbonizing buildings, and so is she, and she didn't want to play together. So we're still working that side out, but we've managed to make some headway. But the big news is we're now a whole lot more holistic. Let's see. And as we meet, we're 2 years, Jonathan and I, we're married. We're only here 2 years, and we've sheet mulched our lawn and put in a permaculture food forest and a garden, and the whole property is just wood chips, because that's the top layer you can see. So it's very unusual. And people are very interested and curious. And our town happens to be one of those very forward-looking ones that they are in favor of the Doug Tallamy. Does anybody not know who Doug Tallamy is?
I don't know.
Okay. Doug Tallamy wrote a series of books. He's an entomologist, and his books are about having everyone in their home, in their backyards or front yards, plant native pollinator plants to attract the birds and the bees, butterflies that pollinate our food. And without pollinators, because the nice pretty plants you get at the local big box store, the insects in the area do not recognize as food. And so, we have a whole lot of planting around, but not a lot of food for biodiversity. And so the idea is there's like a butterfly beltway concept, that if we could have enough of this, these pollinator gardens that are native to the land, so that the native biodiversity, that they can work together, we can keep more of our insects, and maybe turn the tide on insect extinction. So we're getting connected, and we're finding all these great groups that we'd like to help connect and do the kind of bioregional weaving. We have some great partners here too. So, and the nice thing is that a couple of months ago, one of the important ones, Rochester Ecology Partners, got a grant to do research to find all of the environmental organizations in this area. And when that's complete, which is getting close to it, you know, that will be an amazing resource to bring people together. So we're happy because we're getting to know all kinds of people we didn't know before.
I'll go.
that's-
Yeah. Do you have a question, Ian?
I wanted to do a shout out or a thumbs up or something, because that piece Victoria just mentioned about cataloging what's on the ground already surely is foundational to us being, you know, like an ecosystem. You know, listening to Joe, we're thinking humans don't know how to think like an ecosystem. For so long now, we've been, you know, Cartesian, you know, do it, that, all this theory. But the fact is that we can't possibly know all the complexity, but we can feel it or be in touch with it through lists and networks and scatter diagrams and those word cluster diagrams is another example that comes to me off the blue. Victoria, I bet we're going to want to find out the methodology they used over there and see if it can be replicated elsewhere. And then the grant money doesn't have to be so huge. Over.
If you could put your, Ian, if you put your contact information in the chat, I can connect you with the organization, with the person who's in charge. I'd be
Don't put your
interested.
hand up unless you're prepared to do something. Yeah. Okay, here it goes. Anyway, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. John, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I want to thank Victoria for that update. I'm sorry I missed the conference this weekend. I want to make sure I understand. You're saying the same executive director with whom you've had some tension has, however, gotten the true religion. Is that correct?
Yes, she said that's right.
Nodding yes. Okay, so that's great. I think it's time for me to reach out also, because I think getting these messages from multiple angles is probably a good idea. Maybe you can
Just don't
put
mention
her
our
name in the
names.
chat.
Just don't mention our names.
All right.
It's like,
That's
we
fine.
want to hold
That's
on to the
fine.
little good thing. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
You want me to put her name in the chat? Is that what you're saying?
Or email me, just because
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
connection I've been wanting to make, but I haven't had the sense that they were going to be receptive. So it's moved up in my priority list now.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So, you know, this kind of diplomacy and link making is what we're here to do. So I'm quite encouraged by that story. I want to say that I have one thought to share. We have an old growth forest in a city park here in Rochester, roughly equidistant between where I live and where Jonathan and Victoria live. It's called Washington Grove Park. It's quite beautiful. And I was walking there the other day and I became aware, I'm going to share my screen for a moment. I saw something that I've seen many times before, and I had a thought that I just can't resist trying to share. So here I am sharing my screen. And now I want to show you a couple of slides. In the park, there are these abandoned water towers. Here you can see them. They're really big. They're steel or iron. And as you can see, they're covered with graffiti on the outside. Showing you the picture, the interior. Yes, this one here, which I will expand if possible. You can see it's a vast space open to the sky, and there are two of these things. I just have this fantasy that it's it's an unused space in the middle of a city park, in the middle of an old growth forest. Interesting place to think about a public greenhouse or eco restoration. Make seedlings from the old growth forest, propagate them, and make them available for people in their yards. There is a Friends of Washington Grove organization. I haven't reached out to them, but it's just got me thinking. I think that with all the Zooming we're doing, a physical place to converge on and to share knowledge as well as experiences of hands on the ground is something that ultimately is going to be a piece of the whole bioregional consciousness, if you will. And that's my thought. That's my update.
Great, thanks,
That
John.
Great, and
And
we will
I'm
talk
done,
with you,
and I hope-
John.
There we go. Okay.
So that's really, really, really great. We've never seen that. We've
Good.
never heard about that. So we will talk with you about that. Sure. Great, great, great idea.
Great.
Great.
And then I know that Charlie was mentioning it before we got started that we also, you know, last week when we were meeting in our map group, we in our Rochester group to discuss what kinds of maps might be relevant for Rochester, Charlie and showed us the big map to save the planet or save the world. And so we will be coordinating a webinar to present to this group and, you know, to the design school and making sure that it's available to anybody on here as well as over email who would like to attend, so we can see the big map. Charlie, I don't know if you have the link readily available, but if you want to paste it in the chat at some
The
point.
link, I can say it's, if you go to bigmap2savethefuture.net, you'll find our latest and greatest version. And just to set expectations, you know, there are projects like Restore.eco, which are doing, you know, huge in-depth global assessments of territory and ground cover and so on. Because we're just a small group, our ambition is a little more modest, even though we believe our ambition could actually save the future, which is to bring together all of the eco-restoration success stories and to encourage everyone to have one that they can share on the same map so that we, in a sense, are on the same page. So I'm interested in all kinds of mapping, but that's the particular thing we're focusing on. And I will add that as I go on these walks in my neighborhood, I realize that there are on every block one or two houses that have replaced their lawns with natural ground covers and other kinds of things. It occurs to me that someone who really understood how to use Google Street View could collect those en masse. And I could imagine putting them on the map, telling the people, hey, congratulations, we're featuring your wonderful yard. I'd like to, here are a few flyers. You should share them with your neighbors and try to get them on the map also. That's sort of the spirit of what we're trying to get going. And as you can see, I'm big on ideas. Some of them turn into something real, some of them just come and go, but that's where I'm at in thinking about it. So I'd love to work with a group here in Rochester to pilot some of these ideas. And that's why we're talking.
Actually, John, are you familiar with the Permaculture Association of the Northeast?
Not very.
Because they actually they're a nonprofit group. I know Patty Love used to be on the board, but she the new board, I do some of their social media postings. They started an unlawful project, and they actually have a map where they're trying to get I don't know how much, it wasn't fully filled out before, but they're trying to get all of their members to place themselves on their map if they have unlawned their yard and replaced it with ground cover or food forests or anything like that. So that might be a good group to reach out to. I can certainly introduce you to them too and see if maybe they would be open to sharing.
I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Anna, when you do that, if you can connect Jonathan and I, because we have one of those properties that should be, you know.
Yeah.
noted.
Definitely.
Let me say that to get on the map, all you need to do is send Charlie and me an address a picture or two that shows what kind of property it is and what you're doing, and a little story about how this came about. And that's enough. A social media post would be fine too, but that's our process. So,
Mhm.
and while we're just talking about things we can do here in Rochester, the map wants people from everywhere, including Cleveland and anyone else on this call. So if you'd like to help us begin to pull together places that you know about, and you think that it might be useful to do what we're trying to do, you know where to find us.
Great. Yeah, and then I just have one other update for Rochester. It's not really Rochester themed, but kind of, because Jonathan is going to be presenting with me. We are there is an unconference, a complexity unconference this coming weekend. I put an event info about the event in the chat. And Jonathan and I are part of Earth Regenerators. I'm also part of Pro Social World, where we are going to be hosting sessions, just very open and informal discussions about our organizations and how that can relate to the field of complexity science. And Jonathan and I are going to be hosting a discussion on Saturday night at 8 Eastern about this group because it is part of Earth Regenerators. So we wanted to share some of the stuff that we've been working on, how we all come together.
No,
We are a very
I'm on mute.
complex system. And how we relate to each other, I think would be just great to be able to share with the complexity science group and how their insights on complexity science could benefit us. Kim, I know that you already expressed interest in it because you shared some information about it yourself individually. So anybody who wants to attend, you're welcome to attend. It's free. All you have to do is register and sign up through GatherTown. It's on GatherTown. Okay, and Charlie, did you want to say anything in since you are an honorary Rochester dweller?
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Anna. I really want to, first of all, thank Victoria for bringing to attention of these carbon people that it's not all about carbon, it's about the holistic interactions among biodiversity and climate and zoonotic diseases and water shortages. And people need to become more aware of how these interactions occur. And I have really become a disciple of this in the past couple of years. And I think that for people who want to go to the big map, you can see a lot of that philosophy being brought out in our descriptions and in the words of the actual landowners who are involved with restoration, agroecology, agroforestry, and all the rest. So again, I just wanted to emphasize that is certainly ERA's approach, and I'm glad it's starting to become a little contagious. So that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. And on to Toronto. So Julian, Elliot, Ian, Susan, if you're able to, I muted you again. I'm not sure if you want to unmute and introduce yourself. Actually, now would be a good time for you to try introducing yourself again.
Ew.
If not, that is okay. Would anybody else from Toronto like to share any updates of what's going on around there?
I don't have a lot to share beyond my own land. So yeah, just getting some seeds in the ground. But yeah, hoping Elliot and I can connect at some point in time, and just sort of leaving the door open and trying to weave more relationships with other folks in the same space. So not much going on other than that.
Great, that's totally fine. Yeah, Elliot, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I mean, I can talk about what I'm doing for work. I think I've mentioned at least parts of it before. One of the degradation challenges in this part of the world, due to land clearing for the most part, was flash flooding and soil erosion. And one of the ecological restoration techniques that was used was to plant a whole bunch of conifer trees, often in single species or two species configurations. Those need to be gradually thinned and tended over a 60 to 90 year cycle in order to return to mixed wood forests that are representative of what was or should be on the landscape. And I'm doing this through a nonprofit and through a land trust, and learning a whole bunch of lessons where yeah, so much of this is about relationship building between humans, and there's kind of bigger degradation challenges that we're facing now, where in terms of me setting these plantations up to be thinned and getting people like to change their perspective on, no, this isn't a natural forest and this is what needs to happen, and it might look a little bit messy after a logging, but if you don't tend to it, it's going to look even messier in the long run due to collapsing from wind damage or invasive species. But those bigger challenges around access to land and land use conversion for subdevelopments for the most part, yeah, those are some of the bigger challenges that we need to figure out. And yeah, I see a bunch of hands up, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. John, did your hand ever go down? I feel like it's been up the whole time.
Am I there now?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, it's me. Hi, guys. So sorry. I am in Barbados right now, but I do live in Caledon. It's been wonderful to meet Elliot in person, because as we've heard before on these Zooms, that it makes quite a difference when you actually can see somebody that you've been relating to on the Zoom calls. As important as it is to connect through these Zoom calls, on the ground is even more real. So I really appreciate that Elliot is in my zone. Caledon, I'm really trying to focus on the Credit River corridor headwaters, which isn't very big, but it's pretty important because it comes from Orangeville and the Credit River down to Port Credit. And the little farm that I have with my partner, Owen, we've been regenerating farming and rewilding the wildlife corridor that we have on our property. However, 20 minutes up the road, there's blasting and quarries and mega plans for doing even more of blasting out the escarpment up there, which, as we know, is going to impact everything flowing south. And so, as much as I don't want to get involved with the very frustrating mega companies and politicians, because it takes me off of the land doing what I love to do, it's going to be required, and I'm going to need some help on connecting with the people. I mean, there are already a lot of people writing petitions and blocking driveways and saying stop. But the government, the Ford government, the provincial government doesn't doesn't have the interest. And just to digress a bit but it ties into connecting the dots that I've heard a few people say. Today, I went randomly up to a place called Cocoa Hill Forest here, and ran just spontaneously. The guy that is doing the work to regenerate this old plantation land was there. And I got to introduce the work that you are all doing. And he was so incredibly almost wept to realize or to hear me say there is global activity going on. And he has been feeling so alone here, doing it out of his own pocket and trying to do all of the same things that we're coming up with, getting the public to, public comes to visit, but they just see the forest. They don't realize it's creating the air that they breathe. And a comment he made that struck me was he's working with land, he says, that has been traumatized by 400 years of being stripped and monocropped for plantain. And he says land is incredibly traumatized. So networking is great, connecting the dots, finding out who's doing more of what you are doing in your immediate zone, so you can, you don't have to drive 4 hours to go and visit them. I mean, Brian and Susan are a long way away from me in Caledon, and actually all of you are. Rochester and Ian is in Hamilton, and he's my brother, and he's another 2 hours away. So we're not in the same landscapes. So I'm glad I got the phone to work. I'm glad I got to hear y'all, and I'll pass it back to you, Anna.
Susan, I'm your neighbor. Let's hang out when you're back.
I don't see your name showing up.
Julian.
Okay, yes.
I live
have
near
an
the
important,
road.
there's an important event coming up. You should be invited to. It's the Anishwabi Credit River Walk in June. So that's a good thing. I'll try to let you know.
Please.
Okay, thanks, Julie.
Yeah,
Julian, yeah.
yeah, Julian Kaspari. So
Got it.
well, thanks, Susan. That's wonderful. I'm really glad that you were able to get your phone to work.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Ian, did you have anything that you would want to share?
Oh, that's a dangerous question to ask. I'm not plugged into any network right now. The last thing I did here in the Dundas Valley watershed was try to get Extinction Rebellion off the ground, and that went for a couple of years, and it's moribund. But everything there is so much opportunity to do the research, the spade work, whether it's how do we get the groups that are already working cataloged so we kind of know what the territory is. In our area, Burlington is a city right up adjacent to Hamilton. Burlington is sort of upper middle class, and Hamilton's industrial steel town, but so they never merged. But so we got the Greater Bay Area Climate Council going now for 3 years, and my opinion, this is scandalous, but it's been captured, co-opted by corporate interests that do not want there to be corporate collective coalition level climate action. So it got formed with fanfare and has been invisible ever since. Just populated by volunteers from a whole cluster of groups, including the Chamber of Commerce. So yeah, there's a permaculture guild, there's a permaculture neighborhood research group here in town. There's, in my ward of the city, there's a thing called Action 13, which is the ward number, just trying to stir the mud up so that things can take root. I guess what I'm trying to do is give you a share of my one perspective of just how much ferment there already is here. And overlapping us, there is a group out of Quebec called Regenerative Agriculture, and they're doing a map of any farm that wants to be itself identified as regenerative farming. We need to know that network, that we need to help them populate their map. It's grossly underpopulated with sites even right here in my township, which is called Flamborough. Yeah, the weaving is, when you're weaving, you're not doing, when you're zooming, you're not digging. When you're working for a paycheck, then you're not volunteering, and it's very hard to make it all make there to be. For me to be optimistic that we're going to figure out the horsepower, the person power to activate on so many levels at once. I'm going to close by saying I'm relying on Joe's systems thinking to figure that out for us. Over.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian. I think that's a pretty astute observation. Yeah, that the weaving and the zooming, it does definitely take away time for sure from getting your hands dirty, but it's also necessary work in some capacity as long as it's still rooted in the landscape. And I think that's one of the nice things about this is that everybody's doing stuff here, and they're very much connected to their community. I just wanted to give a brief update for Buffalo. So I think I'm pretty just loosely volunteering with multiple different organizations in my area. I'm a longtime volunteer with our local water keepers group, which does a lot of outreach and education on our watershed. And I think that the one thing that came out of our mapping conversation last week that I still am thinking about is Elliot's idea of putting together a packet or is creating a narrative around. Creating a narrative around the watershed that could be given to children or to serve as an educational piece for groups. I love that idea because that's what I spend a lot of my volunteering time doing, is doing outreach around the Lake Erie and Niagara River in our area. We also had our spring sweep this weekend, so I led a group cleanup along the Grand Island, which is on the Niagara River. We had sites all over our watershed and our bioregion doing cleanups, and they also do restoration and invasive species removal throughout the summer too. And I also I'm starting to I'm on the board of a new nonprofit called Birds on the Niagara. We're working towards getting our 501c3, and it's focusing on doing more regional festivals and celebrations of the wildlife that we have here just along the Lake Erie and south and north of the Niagara Escarpment. We are a big location for migratory birds throughout the summer and winter. So it's we're hoping to start to, we have had an annual festival each year in February. And now that we're becoming a true nonprofit, we're hoping to be able to have some more frequent events that we can share with our communities. Okay, and so now that we're through our bioregional updates, I did want to bring up from our mapping conversation last week some of the things that I pulled from the general recap of the meeting. We ended by talking about what data we could collect and how we could start having a central knowledge base where whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Drive that would be easy for us to start collecting some of our resources and have it readily available and easy to search for. I think that one of the downsides of using Mighty Networks is, everybody can hop on and comment, and it's easy to share with people outside of this group, but it's not really a great place for us to save and store all of the resources that we're collecting. And one of the things that we had discussed was setting up an Excel spreadsheet of places where we can start collecting data and sharing it and uploading it in real time. But we would have to develop a format, make sure that we have shared language. And I'm wondering if between now and our next meeting next week, we could start thinking about some of those topics that we'd want to start collecting information on, whether it's on landscapes, specifically, weather and climate, or if we want to just get very, very general and just everything that we can think of that we're interested in our bioregions, what we could collect information on. I know that Elliot was part of that conversation, and I don't know if you have anything that you would like to give input into, since you are our mapping expert, what kinds of information that you think might be valuable for us to start collecting.
I think the scale is important. Yeah. And what I initially suggested was a small pilot project where we look at the process, and then possibly we can scale it up. And then thinking about what the purpose of the output might be. And that this purpose, in my eyes at least, is to be used as an educational tool, so that people can bring it to schools or conferences or workplaces or whatever and say, okay, this is what our bioregion looks like in terms of the biophysical features, and also in terms of some of the social regeneration that's going on. So having said that, I also think stuff can happen on a multi-scalar level, and things can like, if Ian knows a whole bunch of farmers that are doing regenerative work in Flamborough County, then that can get uploaded onto the big map or onto that Quebec one, regeneration agriculture. Yeah, and it doesn't all need to be centralized. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, Ian, would you like to go next?
This is a subject dear to my heart. Before a pilot, it's perfect world. We could need to, put a volume in ahead, which is just research what's there already. Who else is already trying to do something similar? I'm aware of Extinction Rebellion went through major effort globally to create a shared resource database for people, which are many to many, not hierarchical, decentralized, but always needs the back office personnel, because it breaks. People find ways to glitch things. And so it's the first point. And the second point, just to get it into the air, if we're anticipating the impossibly ridiculously large goal that Joe has of regenerating Earth, then whenever we talk about growing something, we should, in our head, artificially force ourselves to scale it up by 100 or 1,000, but at least 100, to be able to say, would this actually work? Well, there's 1,000 more people wanting to get data into our shared mapping resource or our shared data resource. And then third and last point, for sure, a spreadsheet is not enough. I've been there and done that. They're far too clunky to get, or you need to be too expert to manipulate the data in spreadsheet format. But there are other tools, as this is a universal problem. Sharing knowledge quickly at scale you only want to know something when you want to know it. And after you don't know, and until that moment, you don't know that you want to know it, or that you need to know it, or that you care about it. But that's adult learning. Some years ago, I was a corporate trainer, and I was into accelerated learning techniques, designing workshops and corporate training stuff, soft skills. And this is important. This is, we got to be there kind of for the person when they're ready to learn. Over. And I'll put my hand up.
Oh, thanks, Ian. John, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to say that, first of all the points that were just made are well taken, but I also think there is, it's desirable to do things so that they can scale and not necessarily to hold things up until they are fully scalable. To that end, I'll mention that you've mentioned an Excel spreadsheet, and I know they can be shared like Google Sheets on the web, in which case you can ignore my comment. But I was going to say that thinking about an Excel spreadsheet that resides on someone's hard drive, the shareability problem is compounded. If, however, you have an online spreadsheet, which is populated by a form that anyone can just submit data into, then multiple people can contribute at the same time. And then you have a more tractable problem of deriving from that submitted raw data any number of well-structured databases or even derivative spreadsheets that put the information in a coherent fashion. I think that the surveys that Victoria and Jonathan mentioned that are happening in Rochester are good examples of that. And I agree with Ian that simply pulling them all into a folder, putting a Google Sheet in the folder saying, and then putting all the entries from all of those collections into the sheet, making the sheet searchable, and then inviting people to add things to it is a perfectly reasonable ad hoc way of getting started, which can be scaled when someone decides to access the spreadsheet and turn it into a real database. But it's a way of getting started, which I would support. And for that matter, all of the data in the big map are downloadable from the big map and are meant to be that way. There is, as Ian says, quite a general problem that everybody wants to pull this information together, but there's no good method for collating it at all. And it's frankly, it's an unsolved problem. And I think it's mostly a social problem, but it's a big one, but it shouldn't prevent us from creating something good enough to go with to meet our own needs.
Yeah, and John, I was referring to, similar to Google Docs, it's a shareable live document, Google Excel, that anybody with the link is able to edit it in real time.
Okay, then we're on the same page.
Yeah.
I can say that Airtable is a slightly more sophisticated, but pretty easy to use platform with some significant further embellishments, like it can do relations between various tables. And so if you were going to start something along those lines, you might think about an Airtable with a form that feeds it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, I am very new to Airtable, but my organization is starting to use it. So I am starting to get a little bit familiar with it. So I can certainly look into that.
Ian and I think both have been around this block many times. If you'd like a walkthrough on Airtable and how it might get configured for a first pass, I'm happy to help.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you.
I just want to add, I think what Elliot said as architecting some of this and helping us with some of the visualizations and the research is like, what is the purpose of the mapping project? And he suggested education. It could be to understand, where volunteers can engage or how to, leverage more of a community around regenerative efforts. But I think landing on a purpose is a good idea. And then I think everything else flows from that, because I think we also need to define what regeneration actually means in this context. Because I think if you just jump into the technology, then it's for everyone and everything. But I think the purpose should be the core piece that we build from. That will help us select the right technology, I believe. Over. I'm going to start saying over as well.
Thanks, Julian. Yeah, and I think this is meant to be like a quick check-in, because so many of us are attending they attended that meeting last week, and I agree. I think that we still have a lot to flesh out in terms of purpose and also scale, and where we are mapping. Is each bioregion interested in doing something different? So I think that there's still a lot to unpack in our meeting next week as well. Charlie, did you want to say something?
Ian and John both have excellent points. I worked for county government in Northern Virginia for about a decade as GIS analyst, and we used an enterprise geodatabase, which is a highly sophisticated and complex system. You have to have Citrix servers and just a variety of different types of hardware, and that my initial desire when starting this project was to do mapping of vegetation at these selected sites. One of the biggest problems with restoration is that nobody looks at maintenance at all, and very few of these sites actually do long-term maintenance. Long-term is 10 years or more. So we have all the satellite imagery that could be analyzed and put into an enterprise type geodatabase. And I'm not suggesting we do this, because we're all grassroots. We don't have $100,000 to spend on a system like this. But is to take a survey of all of the different vegetation, land cover types, and all that, and see if they persist over time. If we can do that with something like Airtable, that's great, because I'm not familiar with that software. But that's kind of the direction I was heading when I first started this. It's a huge job. I'm not saying it's feasible with the amount of people we have, and I think it would also require a field, botanist to help us identify the different plants in that. But I think that would be a very worthwhile thought, anyway.
Thanks, Charlie. Kim?
Yeah, I was just going back to the purpose and the why again. And just so yesterday we were sitting around a literal fire, which was interesting. And with these groups that have networks, and what is it that they're looking for in terms of mapping? Because the mapping that will be done here was shared by Kelly with these people who came together. And it seemed like for them, the why was to be able to reach people, and build the email lists and get people conversations going about life after fossil fuels. And they'll come, we'll plant these forests, they'll come, and there'll be conversations like to get that going. And for me, I'm thinking, well, who are these groups? Where are these farms? I mean, because I know they're everywhere, as evidenced by the people that were sitting there. And then like taking in things like, a friend whose only work right now is looking at businesses and industry, and what are the things that would help most to not pass another threshold, right? And like one of them is transforming big box stores and start to use local food, so what kinds of things can be done to encourage that? And I don't know, I'm thinking there's so many reasons that mapping would be helpful. But part of it is to amplify the good things that are being done so that we can bring in some other types of action maybe.
Thanks, Kim. Very well put. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our time. I'd love to do one last round with a short checkout. Say what you're thinking and feeling. And I hope we see many of you guys next week when we have our second mapping meeting. I am personally just always so amazed at everybody who shows up to this meeting and love hearing about all the stuff that everyone is doing. It's very inspiring and motivating. So I will pass it on to Charlie.
Oh. Yeah. No, I have nothing else to say. I'm just happy to have met all you people. And, try and support you in any way that I can, although my time is extremely limited. So, best of luck to you.
Thank you. Well, how about Ian? Do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I was echo that comment. Time is limited. Time is limited. We have 5 years before the global system looks like bleak and chaotic, more chaotic than it is already. So on that score, feels like nothing could be more important than working on this kind of a last ditch effort to have a design for regenerating Earth. I haven't got my feet in the ground on this project. I haven't got my hands in the dirt. I'm right now, you know what? I'm over my head and running a small farm and I need a helper. My helper just left according to plan and I haven't got a replacement yet. If you know anybody who wants to run a small organic farm in permaculture in Southern Ontario with accommodation, let me know. Over. You were muted.
I was muted. Victoria, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks. Always fascinated by what people are doing and what they can bring to the fore. And Doreen, if you could put your email in here, I wanted to ask you a question about the landfill repurposing. It's kind of a hobby of mine. Thanks. Doreen, why don't you go next?
Okay, thanks. I'm grateful to be part of this group. I look forward to meeting more and sharing what you're doing successfully, replicating it perhaps, and educating my area in a, I too am looking forward to hearing of success stories to build on it, because just need some more like boosts that, yeah, we're doing the right thing. Let's keep moving. Let's build relationships above all. So thank you for the meeting. And I guess we meet again in 2 weeks.
Yeah, or next week if you want to join our mapping call.
Okay, thank you.
Jonathan, would you like to go next?
We're really impressed at the quality of the folks who show up for these meetings and what's going on and what the aspirations are. So I'm very happy about that. Did Kim speak? Okay.
Just checking out with gratitude and still just really curious, still really want to know more about where our water comes from, where our food comes from, just the basic, those basic questions. And, the answers are beautiful, or they can be. So I will pass it to Elliot.
Missed the last 5 minutes there. Had another call come in. Yeah. It takes a lot of time, these things, I recognize that. And yeah, I'm also eager to see how we can kind of come together and get something concrete and tangible produced. Not sure who else has gone, so
I think John and Julian are the last two.
okay, I'll pass it over to Julian.
Hi, I'm out walking my dog now. Yeah, just feeling into yeah.
You're breaking up a
There's
little.
lot of mystery.
You need more bandwidth.
See what'll emerge. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Julian. And John?
Well, I agree. It's a really nice group. It's good to spend time with you. I'm encouraged by the updates everyone is giving and the real progress people are making and the value we get from being able to rub elbows with each other. I also, however, agree with Elliot that the big challenge we have is that each of us making a difference is critical.
Whoops.
Well, we lost you. Oh, he's no longer on here at all. All right. Well, I think since we're over time, I know I gotta jump. But thank you everyone for coming, and we hope to see you next week.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.